Okay, so we've got a really interesting set of articles here all about AI and
Yeah, it
self-diagnosis.
looks like you're really interested in this whole thing about using AI for, figuring out what's wrong with you.
Yeah, I mean, the potential is huge, but there are obviously some pretty big risks too.
Absolutely. And it's not just theoretical anymore, right? We've
Yeah.
got real life cases, ethical debates,
hmm
even legal implications all coming into play.
Yeah, and what's fascinating is that these articles are all from medical professionals who are also working in tech.
Talk about being on the cutting edge.
So our mission today is to really unpack this whole AI self-diagnosis thing.
What are the benefits? What are the huge EE risks? And how can people listening, actually navigate this whole new world of healthcare technology?
Right, because it is a new world and it's changing fast.
One of the things that really jumped out at me from these articles is just how many people are turning to AI for health information.
Yeah, it's more than just wanting a quick answer, though, right?
Definitely. I think it's a mix of things.
Yeah.
Convenience is a big one,
Oh, no.
obviously.
Oh, absolutely. Waiting weeks or even months for a doctor's appointment can be incredibly stressful.
And then you can just ask an AI anything, anytime.
Exactly, and let's not forget the cost factor.
Oh, yeah. Healthcare costs are a huge concern for a lot of people. And AI seems like it could be, a way to save money.
But it's not just about time and money either.
Right. There's also the privacy aspect. Talking about sensitive health issues can be really tough for some people.
And they might feel more comfortable opening up to an AI.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And there's also that feeling of control that comes with researching your own symptoms, taking charge of your own health.
Speaking of which, one of the articles you sent was about a mother who used ChatGPT to diagnose her son's rare condition.
Oh, yeah. That one was
It's
incredible.
an amazing story. 3 years, 17 doctors, and no answers until she turned to AI.
It really highlights the potential of AI to uncover things that might be missed otherwise.
But at the same time, it's important to remember that this is an exceptional case. And this is where the conversation gets really interesting because AI is not a replacement for a doctor.
All of the experts in these articles are very clear about that.
Right.
It just can't do what a doctor can do.
Exactly. AI lacks the ability to perform physical exams, analyze lab results, or, really grasp the individual nuances of a case.
It's just not there yet.
Think about it, you tell an AI you have a headache.
Right.
Is it stress, a brain tumor, or just needing new glasses?
And AI can't tell the difference, but a doctor can.
And that's what leads us to the risks, which are pretty serious.
Oh,
The
absolutely.
one that jumps out immediately is misdiagnosis.
And the consequences go beyond just getting the wrong answer.
Right.
Imagine someone taking medication based on an AI's recommendation
Mm.
that ends up interacting dangerously with something else they're taking,
Oh, wow. Yeah.
or delaying necessary medical care because they think they have it all figured out.
It's a bit like those online symptom checkers, right?
Yeah.
You plug in your symptoms and it spits out a possible diagnosis, but studies have shown they're often wrong.
And the accuracy rates are pretty alarming, actually.
Like, how often are they wrong?
Well, one study found that they were only right about a third of the time.
That's terrifying.
It is.
And then there's the issue of cyberchondria.
Ah, yes, the tendency to go down a rabbit hole of online symptom searching and convince yourself you have something terrible.
Exactly. And it sounds like AI could make that even worse.
It certainly could. AI's concise answers can sound so authoritative that it's easy to forget that the information might not be accurate or complete.
So even if you're really good at, crafting prompts for AI, you might not be able to describe your symptoms accurately enough for it to give you a reliable answer.
Absolutely. Would you consider mild discomfort might be a huge red flag to a doctor? AI can't ask clarifying questions or delve deeper like a human doctor can.
And then there's the whole issue of how AI is trained.
The data.
Yeah, several articles mentioned how the data used to train AI can create location-specific biases.
For example, a tool trained in the US might miss a disease that's more common in another part of the world.
Or recommend treatments that aren't even available in certain countries.
Right. And that's something we really need to consider as AI becomes more integrated into global healthcare.
And then there's the legal side of things, which gets really complicated.
Oh, yeah.
Because who's liable if AI gives bad medical advice that leads to harm?
It's a total gray area right now. Some experts believe manufacturers could be held responsible, while others think it could fall on the doctors who rely on AI's recommendations.
And then there's the question of informed consent.
Did the patient even know AI was involved in their diagnosis?
It's a bit of a Wild West out there.
We definitely need clearer guidelines and regulations to protect patients and make sure that AI is used responsibly in healthcare.
Absolutely. So we've covered the appeal of AI self-diagnosis, the risks involved, and even touched on the legal complexities.
It's a lot to think about.
It is. So what does this all mean for you, the listener?
Well, the key takeaway is that AI in healthcare is a powerful tool, but it's not a magic bullet.
It's more like a starting point.
Exactly. It can be incredibly useful for learning about symptoms, preparing questions for your doctor, and getting some initial insights. But it's crucial to use it responsibly.
So never rely on it for serious symptoms, managing chronic conditions, or diagnoses that require lab tests.
And always consult a qualified healthcare professional for a proper diagnosis and treatment.
Couldn't agree more. AI should complement professional medical care, not replace it.
Absolutely. So, before we were talking about how relying on AI for self-diagnosis can be a bit risky
Yeah, you can really end up going down the wrong path.
and potentially missing out on treatment that you need.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it would be helpful to actually look at some real-world examples of this.
Definitely, because it's one thing to talk about the theory, but
But when you see it happening in real life, it's a lot more impactful.
one article that I found really disturbing was about a patient who used an AI chatbot for advice about an eating disorder.
Oh, wow.
And the guidance that they got actually worsened their condition.
That's really scary.
It is, and it really highlights the need for, rigorous testing and ethical guidelines as these AI tools are developed.
Because the stakes are so high when it comes to healthcare.
Absolutely.
It makes you think twice about those online symptom checkers that are so popular.
Oh, yeah, like WebMD.
Exactly, which, let's face it, a lot of us have used at some point.
And just looking for a quick answer.
Right, exactly. And it's easy to assume that because something is widely used and easily accessible, that it must be reliable.
But as we talked about earlier, that's not always the case with these tools.
So it's a good reminder to stay critical even when you're using platforms that seem trustworthy.
Always double check the information.
Yeah, cross-reference, consult multiple sources, and don't just take an algorithm's interpretation of your symptoms as gospel.
Definitely.
And even when an AI tool is accurate, it's still limited by the information you give it.
Right. We touched on this earlier, but accurately conveying your symptoms to an AI could be a lot more challenging than you might think.
Oh, absolutely. One expert in the articles put it perfectly. What you consider mild discomfort could be a major red flag to a doctor.
Yeah, there's just a level of nuance that's hard to capture without that human interaction.
It's true. It's easy to overlook or downplay certain details or even use the wrong terminology when you're describing your symptoms.
And that can totally skew the AI's assessment.
Right, whereas doctors are trained to ask the right questions and pick up on those subtle cues that an AI might miss entirely.
It's like that saying, if you hear hoofbeats, think horses, not zebras.
I love that analogy.
Doctors are trained to rule out the common and obvious before jumping to rare or complex diagnoses.
And AI, at least in its current form, doesn't always have that same level of, sophisticated understanding.
Exactly. It can be swayed by a user's description, even if it's incomplete or misleading.
Which brings us back to the importance of seeking professional medical advice.
Always.
AI can be a valuable tool for learning and exploring, but it shouldn't replace the expertise of a doctor.
So true.
So while we're being cautious about the risks, what about the future? Where do you see AI fitting into the healthcare landscape down the line?
Well, I think the possibilities are really exciting. I can see AI being a huge help to doctors with things like analyzing medical images,
Oh, yeah.
spotting patterns in massive data sets, and even personalizing treatment plans.
And that could free up doctors to spend more time with their patients.
Exactly.
I also think AI could play a bigger role in patient education and engagement.
Oh, definitely.
Imagine having an AI assistant to help you understand your medications, track your symptoms, remind you about appointments.
That would be amazing.
And it could potentially even help with some of the disparities we see in healthcare access.
Oh, that's a great point.
Think about AI-powered diagnostic tools that are affordable and available to people in remote or underserved areas.
That would be a game changer.
It would, but of course, as we move forward, it's essential to proceed with caution. We need to learn from past mistakes, prioritize patient privacy and safety, and make sure that AI is used ethically and responsibly in healthcare.
Couldn't agree more. It's an exciting time to be exploring this intersection of AI and healthcare, but it's important to remember that technology is only as good as the people using it.
Okay, so we're back, and we've talked about a lot of the big picture stuff with AI and self-diagnosis.
The potential, the risks, the ethical questions.
Exactly, but now let's get practical. What can people actually do to protect themselves,
Yeah.
in this whole new world of AI and health?
Right. I think it all comes down to being an informed and empowered patient.
Empowered. Yeah, that's a good word.
And the first step is remembering that AI is a tool, not a doctor. It's a starting point for your research, not the final word.
It's easy to get kind of, lulled into a false sense of security with those AI responses, right?
So they're so concise and to the point.
Exactly. And one expert mentioned how that authoritative tone of AI can sometimes make people overconfident in its accuracy,
Even when the information is wrong.
which is a scary thought.
That's why it's so important to always check the credibility of any AI tool you're using.
How do you do that?
Well, look at the sources, read reviews, and be wary of platforms that seem too good to be true.
If something feels off, trust your gut.
Exactly.
And on that note, one article really emphasized the importance of data privacy.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
Because not all AI health apps are created equal when it comes to how they handle your information.
Some might collect and share your data without your consent.
Which is not okay.
No, it's not always. Read the privacy policy before you enter any personal information.
Always good advice.
Look for tools that are transparent about their data practices and, that prioritize security.
That's a really good point. Okay, so here's another practical tip. When you're describing your symptoms to AI, be as specific as possible.
Yeah, the more detail you give it, the better it can understand your situation.
Because AI can't read between the lines.
Exactly. It can't pick up on those subtle cues like a human doctor can.
So don't leave anything out, even if it seems minor.
You never know what detail might be important.
And at the end of the day, don't let AI discourage you from actually going to see a doctor.
Oh, absolutely.
If you have any doubts or you're experiencing, any concerning symptoms, schedule an appointment.
It's always better to err on the side of caution when it comes to your health.
Couldn't agree more.
Mm-hmm.
So AI can be helpful. It can be a good addition to professional care.
But it's not a substitute.
Exactly. Your doctor can take into account your entire health history, perform necessary exams, and come up with a treatment plan that's specifically for you.
And that's something that AI just can't do.
Yet, so that brings us back to kind of a bigger question about AI in healthcare. As these technologies keep evolving, how do we make sure that they actually benefit everyone, not just a select few?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's complicated, but I think it starts with having really clear regulations.
Regulations for what?
To make sure these AI tools are safe and effective.
Right.
And we also need to make sure that the data used to train these AIs is inclusive and unbiased.
So that it works for everyone.
Everyone.
And making sure everyone has access to these technologies is important too, right?
Oh, absolutely. Regardless of where they live or their socioeconomic status.
Because we don't want to create a digital divide in healthcare.
Exactly.
That's a really important point.
It's a big challenge, but I think with collaboration, innovation, and a commitment to ethical AI development, we can actually use these technologies to make healthcare more equitable and accessible for everyone.
That's a great point to end on. So as we wrap up our deep dive, here's something for you to think about. What role do you want AI to play in your healthcare? It's a question worth pondering as we enter this new era of AI-powered healthcare. Stay informed, stay curious, and most importantly, advocate for the responsible development of these incredibly powerful technologies. And remember, your health is your most valuable asset. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Seek professional guidance and make informed choices that put your well-being first. That's it for this deep dive. We hope you found it informative and thought-provoking. Until next time, keep exploring.